Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Marketing. My name is Kim Britz and my wonderful co-host joining me today is Bjorn Salsone. Bjorn, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm so good. Perspective is a beautiful thing. So I'm good. I'm good and I'm excited because you've got this naughty grin on your face because you know what's going to happen in a few minutes. So it's like, oh, Kevin's introducing himself kind of show. I love it. I love it. How are you, Kevin?
I'm well. I think COVID has had, or 2020 has had a tremendous toll on my life. It has been, I could probably say, one of the most difficult times I've ever had in my life. I mean, COVID happened, but my dad passed away. Lots happened this year. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's keeping your head just above water, so it's kind of going, okay, cool, you're okay, everything's fine. But yeah, still get up and do it every day.
Okay. So Kevin, today we have a different show that I'm very, very excited about. And I know that you are too. And for everyone who's listening, who's tuning in, welcome to Lunchtime Marketing. Today's a show with a twist. And that's not just because we love changing things up. It's actually because it's taken 6 months for me to try and get an interview with my amazing co-host, Kevin Britz. Now, when we started the show, we started out of the fact that we wanted to help people because we could. And what it's evolved into, I said, Kevin, we've got to interview. There's so much stuff to ask you. And Kevin was like, no, let's get someone else. And eventually, with the help of Brent Lindekio, so I hope Brent's listening, I had to do it out of peer pressure. I said, Brent, don't you think we should interview Kevin? And Brent's like, yes. So Kevin Britz, welcome to Lunchtime Marketing. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
So Bjorn, tell us, what are we talking about today?
I love it. Kevin, you know what I think is really important before we get into the history of you as a brand and you as a person, just, there's so much that I could chat to you about in terms of LinkedIn, what's on your Facebook, on your Twitter, the voice of Steve, and. But just tell us who you are. People always want to know the inside scoop. They want to know, what do you brush your teeth with? Do you have coffee in the morning? Are you a green tea person? Are you a yogi? Do you have water that's been distilled? Are you, tell us the inside scoop of who Kevin Britz is before we get into the brand.
Sure, okay. It's difficult to distinguish between the two because I do this so much
then be brand.
Yeah, and it's because of it's actually your fault that I am this today.
I think I'm supposed to say thank you, Kevin.
Yes, say that. I'm an eternal optimist. I think for me, and I remember that from my teen years, that I always imagined things could be better. I could be better. Situations could be better. And I'm Pisces, so I'm a big dreamer. I love being what if this happened, and what if that happened, and what potentially could come from this, and sometimes not achieving it even slightly, and sometimes overachieving something that I didn't even realize I would achieve. So I think eternal optimist is the first thing that comes to mind. I'm a dad. I'm a fiance. I'm a friend, a brother, and just really probably passionate about why people do what they do. I remember having a very troubled childhood, and my curiosity started then because I kind of wanted to understand why this person behaved a certain way, especially when you loved the person and they acted so badly. Why? How does love go away from this behavior? And I found this often in so many instances. And then just because I had really terrible childhood, I don't remember a lot of my childhood between the ages of, 8 and 15, just based on the fact that I was horrible. So the curiosity of human nature was always there. And today that's what I do. I live and breathe eternal optimist person of inquiring behavior. that makes sense.
Right. So I'm going to kind of change things up a little bit just because I can. So
Okay.
Kevin, in light of the fact that you're an internal optimist, what do you do when you have a bad day? How do you get from and the reason I'm going to go, the reference I'm going to go back to is what you just spoke about. Now, you spoke about 2020 being quite a chaotic year and your dad passed away. And I know you and I have had many conversations around that, which we don't have to get into on here. But it wasn't the happiest moment, like, yay, my dad passed away. It was like, oh no, my dad passed away. How did you get from that place? And I know they say time heals wounds, but I always say there's two ways you can come out of that a changed person because you allowed the hurt to work through it, or you can come out bitter, torn, sad, depressed, angry at the world and feel like everyone owes you something. How did you navigate that time? Because a lot of people will listen to this and think, man, I lost a loved one this year. I'm battling this year. How is this guy? And I'm not saying by all means you have to go like, oh my gosh, I've arrived, but how have you moved forward?
I think first and foremost, having a business is not easy, as you know. So one of the challenges I've been posed with this year as well was to come up with a program that specifically spoke around resilience. And when it's sort of instinctive, it's like, yes, I absolutely have so much to share about resilience. I think the key motivator behind that is really, and a lot of brands out there, a lot of coaches out there, a lot of people out there will say, yeah, values are important. But for me, until you intrinsically feel what your value is doing for you, you really need to wrap your brain around that. So for me, it was about if I didn't have really understand what my values are doing and why I do what I do and why am I getting up in the day, I literally would have been debilitated by my dad, by a moment with COVID, by very difficult, some relationships that I've let go of this year as well. And I think it really, I think that get up and go in the morning is, because I also, part of the resilience program that I put together for a brand is really understanding how do we get there. And part of succeeding and failing in the last couple of years, what I've noticed in my own capacity was that everybody has a moment, you have a moment of choice where it's either going to debilitate you or it's not. And in that moment, one of the things I've shared with so many people is your brain is waiting for you to reach for a bigger moment than you're in. And if you don't, you're debilitated by the moment. But if you go, what is bigger than this moment? What is bigger than right now? What is bigger than this? Your brain's kind of going, what the hell are you on about? Like you're supposed to be sad right now. Why are you not sad? And you're kind of going, but I want a bigger moment than the sad moment. And the beautiful thing about confirmation to this is through my research, I came across a neuroscientist whose name is, I forget his name right now, but a neuroscientist confirming this, right? Confirming that very often we have the sense that we need to get our brains on board to be able to simply change our environment. And that is true, and that is essential. But part of changing your environment literally has to go, what is my behavior? What is the behavior of the bigger moment? And how do I do that? Start the behavior. And your brain kind of is going, why are we doing this? Why are we, you start having this kind of a bit of conflict. But the moment you start behaving the behavior of success or the behavior of a bigger moment, your brain wants to get on board with what you are behaving. So instinctively knowing that as a resilient factor for me throughout my career, throughout everything I've done was what is bigger than this moment? So I always think
bigger than that moment. I'm writing that down. What is bigger than this moment?
What instinctively humans, we have, the flight fight moment. We
Yes.
either want to make ourselves smaller or we want to get away from it, right? So
Yes.
because our brains are there to keep us safe, what we
Yeah.
must realize that in the inevitable aim of growth and potential, it only happens when we are reaching for more than that moment. So for me to be
Absolutely.
able to get to there, my brain kind of has to go, I don't know what's bigger than this moment. It's like, yeah, I know you don't know, but if you try to know, if you could imagine it, what would it look
Yeah.
like? And
Love
you're like,
that.
okay, well, okay, then I would speak to 5 people. I'm like, cool, go and speak to 5 people. I would go and see a psychologist. Oh, cool, go and see a psychologist. I would go walk for the rest of the week and go and make this time to get my head clean.
Yeah.
And like suddenly, because you're reaching for the bigger moment, so that's what gets you through. Because and if you don't reach, it will debilitate you. It becomes a debilitation moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, Kev. I'm not going to go into this too much, but Dr. John Kehoe, and a lot of people know him. I mean, when he was in South Africa, we were part of his marketing team, which was really amazing. And one of the things he said in his final session, he said, intrinsically, we actually know the solution. There's two things that happen. We embrace it when it's told to us, or we run out of fear. And that kind of phrase always sticks in my head going, in a moment of panic, okay, I should just calm down. But there might be an element of like, I don't want to calm down. I want to scream. I want to shout. I want to get people's attention, whatever. Yeah. And the problem is when we resist that, like all sort of chaos kind of goes. So totally spot on. I love that. That's really awesome. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in our wrap up. Kev, and the question I'm going to ask you about your brands, and this kind of I love that you said it's my fault. So as I said, I'm going to say thank you. Just tell us about how Kevin the brand evolved and like kind of where you came from. And I'm assuming you might touch on the voice of Steve. If you don't, it'd be great if you could give people some perspective. And then just kind of tell us to where you're at now and that journey that you've gone through.
So I don't usually talk about it, but I'm challenging myself and I'm wanting people to know this. I fell out of the closet when I was 30. I literally fell out when I was 30 years old. And then tried to run away to Thailand thinking, okay, well, when you get divorced, run to Thailand because that's the best thing to do. It's not. No one speaks English. So you're kind of going, okay, well, I can't speak about my miserable life. And I came back and was homeless.
You go, Sawadee-ka?
Yes, exactly that. And I came back and lived with my mom. I was 31 years old living with my mother. And miserable and useless, kind of.
Is that how you felt? You felt useless because you'd gone to Thailand and you ran? Or you felt useless because you thought, oh my gosh, who am I as a person? Like, what does that mean?
Everything that you could question about why you're on the earth, what have you done? You suddenly have come out as openly gay. You have an ex-wife, you have a daughter, you don't have work. Every possible question you could attach to that, I attached to that. And then, difficultly not having any support from anyone close to me, except my mom. And then a year later, my mom died. And instinctively, through resilience and motivation and eternal optimistic nature that I have, I was like, what is bigger than this moment? And I got odd jobs doing voiceover work for Silverstock Casino. And eventually someone said, why don't you just do a radio ad? And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. Borrowed 600 Rand from my brother and did the radio ads. And lo and behold, 3 ads later, it was for Steve. And Steve literally became a household name in South Africa for quite a large period. And also the stats related to it, from what I've heard, is it's the most famous radio voice that in South African history for a brand. And I was like, wow, well, that's kind of a big deal.
We should have had champagne on the show instead of just having tea. So cheers to that.
Cheers. And yeah, so F&B literally became a household name, changed the face of banking through banking apps, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly that came to a grinding halt and I was going, oh, okay, now we're back at reinventing this life of mine. And then eventually someone just said, why don't you just teach people what it is you do? And predominantly in my 20s, I spent a lot of time on stage. I did a lot of singing for the Barnyard Theatres, for other theatre companies.
Yeah.
And, but I'd also had been certified as an NLP practitioner, and loved the idea of reframing and understanding people's minds and how you use your brain to language information. So I was like, okay, well, being on stage, I have this NLP experience. I'm going to write a presentation module, and I'm going to put it out there. And I didn't have any money, so I advertised on Gumtree, and I got one client from Nedbank.
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay, cool. And then one of my coaches said to me, why don't you just go to call centers and teach people? You do voice, you have this voice experience. Why don't you teach call centers? And went to the CCMG. The CCMG is the Call Center Association, and they loved what I was presenting. And I was like, cool, I'm going to present this to them. And also borrowed money to fly around the country to do these presentations. And suddenly I had a training business called Voice by Design. And within a very short, quick 2 or 3 years, I started working for Sun International, MultiChoice, F&B, the call center, and started having a lot of success with that. And then started making some really bad business decisions and started moving things around and getting people involved that shouldn't have been, and that didn't share my passion. And eventually signed up, became a licensee to the LMI, which is Leadership Management International. So I facilitate leadership programs with them. And that's the business sort of evolved from Voice by Design to Business by Design. And that sort of brought us into this year. And coming into this year was a challenge because of the bad business decisions I'd made. But I knew that the more I did what I did, the more I wanted to share with people. But I instinctively knew I didn't want to just be on YouTube and going, oh, guys, let me tell you, like, I didn't want to be that guy. And
you didn't want to be a vlogger, Kev.
No, like I wanted the information to have meaning. And when you and I chatted, you randomly said to me one day, Kevin, what exactly do you do? And I got so annoyed by the fact that you asked me that. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean you don't know? Like, have you not seen my website? And then I was like,
I had at that point, actually.
And then I was like, okay, well, since you don't know what I do, let me tell you. And that's where, you and I started doing this as a show. And then it sort of evolved into lunchtime leadership, lunchtime stories, lunchtime business, lunchtime marketing, lunchtime coaching. And now, if you just Google, if you put in lunchtime coaching or my name into Google, everything comes up. And I'm going, okay, now people don't have that excuse to say they don't know what I do, right? But I think the evolution of that has been all based on the fact that I part of the resilience, the eternal optimist, how the brands sort of come about, and where this is going. And today, doing a lot of coaching with executives, and I'm loving that because very often executives have the titles and that, big titles that go with it. But yet a lot of their foundation still tricks them up, it catches them out. And I get to work with people's foundations and kind of go, oh, have you noticed this? And have we noticed this? And suddenly it just evolves into a whole new kind of a strength that this person has and the tool set. So so the brand's really evolving into leadership, and then in the next couple of months it will all specifically be at dealing with leaders in the world, leadership in business, leadership in organization, everything to do with leadership.
Got it. Kevin, so from just a business practical point of view, one of the things that you mentioned now, which is so true, that you said a lot of people have the title, they are an executive. And there is an automatic, in my opinion, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, there's an assumption of you've got a title, now perform at that title. And yet at the same time, if someone hasn't been given the skills or trained in those skills to act at the level of what the title expects, they often just don't meet with expectations, and then they're considered a bad leader. And one of the things that I've often said is, there's a massive difference between being a leader in an organization and being a manager in an organization. And, there's an element of that I always say, you've got to lead people, but manage a process. And I often find a lot of people get it wrong. My question is this, and we are talking about you, we're talking about your business. Tell us what you do in terms of helping those executives, in terms of actually coaching them. You can chat through maybe in terms of your actual program, or like, is it a monthly retainer? Is it a quarterly review? Just kind of give us a bit of meat to that. Just because as people listen, they might go, man, I'm an executive. Like, what exactly? Yeah. Wait for it. What exactly is it that he does?
So, like if you go to the website, you'll see there's services, and when you click on the coaching services, I separate.
Can you mention the website for us, please?
Yeah, so businessbydesign.co.za, and you'll see there's home, the services, lunchtime series, and contacts. Under the services, you go to the coaching plans section, and in this, what I do is I divide it into transformational coaching, and executive coaching. And the reason for that is, on the transformational side, very often people want to go through a bit of transformation in their career or in their relationships and in their lives. And it's kind of quite a detailed process, very structured, and really helps you figure out what that looks like. From an executive perspective, we want to know, we really want to know the core values of why you get up in the day, and how to understand what your growth is. One of the things that we specifically do in the coaching process is very often, as a sort of discovery conversation, I'll often ask people, so tell me this goal that you want to reach, tell me what it feels like. And very often people will go, oh no, I don't know what it feels like. And that in plain simple English is, you have a disassociation to your goal, which means as much as you're living towards this thing that you're aiming to do, you have no attachment to it, and it's disassociated. So it's over there in the future, and you're kind of going, yeah, no, that's my goal. It's over there, right?
Yes.
The moment you start invigorating, and there's a whole bunch of processes that we go through, but the moment you get through the invigoration of what is it showing up like, what does it behave like, what does it feel like, what does it sound like, how do I attach to this thing, how am I in association to my goal? Suddenly my goal's like, and it's like right in my face, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now what are the next steps? And that's really from a leadership perspective, what we want to go through in terms of that is really having the practicalities of taking charge of that moment right now and bringing it into your hands, as close to your hands as possible. Often if you say to people, this goal that you have, tell me if you could place it somewhere, just put it somewhere, place it wherever you want, and then tell me how far that distance is.
Right.
And people will go, oh no, it's about 100 meters, or no, it's about 20 kilometers, or no, it's on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
And they're going, well, that will give you a clear indication of how much you're actually doing about it, what actions you're taking towards it, and whether this is working for you or not, right? So from an executive perspective, and it becomes what is it that you need to change as an executive, and what is showing up for you in your world? How do we look at all of that, and where is it that you want to go? And that's really the process, is really to help guide, but also to create the safety for executives. A lot of people who have titles don't have the affordability or the afforded luxury of being vulnerable. From my perspective, and you essentially want to be able to go, hey dude, you know what, I'm here to help you get to where it is you want to go, in this moment that we're having, I need you to be as vulnerable as possible. And the space here, I will allow for you to just let it out.
Right.
And I think, as an executive, very often you feel, well, I am the master, like the financial director of so-and-so, or the COO, or I'm supposed to have the answers.
Carry so much.
And that's not necessarily the case, because you're a person. You have fears, you have feelings, you have self-doubt. All of that still comes up. But when you have someone who creates a safe space for you to be able to talk about anything, then you're kind of going, okay, cool. What's the next step?
Well, Kev, I think what you just touched on is, as people keep listening, they'll realize that, man, it's true. People have big titles and there's work responsibilities, and then there's generally a skill set that's associated with that work set. But at the end of the day, they're also humans, and it's so great that you're sharing, that you do have self-doubt. You do kind of wonder, is this the right decision? Am I on track? And hence, where you fit in. But I also think with the thing that you've touched on, which is really, really important, is the impact that this probably affects anybody who's a business owner, anybody who's an entrepreneur, anybody who's kind of going, I've got this dream, I've got this goal, I've always wanted to work for myself, whatever. I've always wanted to open up ABCD retailer. I've always wanted to open up a restaurant, What does that look like in a COVID time? Or do I wait? How do you not get stuck and move on? And so the question I wanted to ask you on what you've just shared now, is there, in terms of what you do, is it only when you say executives, are we talking corporate specifically? Or are we talking about the guy that's opened up a business, he got retrenched because of COVID, but he's got this massive skill set, but he just needs to kind of, where do I go next and how do I do? Is that where you come in, or are we talking about a corporate who's, he's in this role and he just knows that he's not performing as optimal and that's where he needs you?
So it really doesn't matter who it is. The reason why I call it executive is based on the fact that 9 out of 10 times an executive will take the action. A lot of the time when you go through coaching processes with people, they invariably get lazy and they don't want to, commit, and this is too expensive, or this. From an executive perspective, I'm going to spend a lot of time giving you a lot of information, taking you through a lot of information. But I'm also going to hold you accountable and really get you to commit. And that's not going to be comfortable. I'm not here to be a woe is me friend for you. You can phone your mother for that.
I love that.
I'm like, cool. Right. Okay, we've got your misery out the way. Cool. I'm glad that we have. What are we learning? How are we going to change it?
Because you've got results at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Us, what's the point of having a coach? If we consider an athlete coach, an athlete's coach doesn't go, oh, come on, man, you can do it. Come on. Like there's no, it's like, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you doing this? They far more forceful, right? Okay, I don't do that. but I do.
It's like, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir, absolutely.
I do poke the bear. I kind of go like,
right.
You said you were going to do this, and this is the outcome you're looking for, but yet between this time and this time, you haven't taken action. So why are you not taking action? And invariably, when your values don't support the action taking, you won't do it.
Absolutely. Crazy, but true. Thank you. Kev, tell us, in terms of just managing time and, what we've got to get through, any new developments that are coming up? Stuff that we don't know, but we'd love to know.
Yeah, so, I've touched on it briefly. Very happy to, well, the one thing is recently the Resilient Motivation program that I put together. Really wanting to share that with corporates at the moment. Teams are struggling. Right. I've gone through some a really big client recently and starting with another one next week.
Yeah.
And so it's all about resilient motivation, and what does resilience look like, and how do we stay motivated? And that's a 6-week program where we kind of go through really getting your brain on board with the foundations of it, what the boundaries are, how to set that up for yourself, and really asking really important questions around how you do you on a day-to-day basis, because that in itself, the foundation of that will build the resilience to the next 6 months, the next 12 months. That's the one thing. And yeah, we, the other amazing project that I'm part of is the part of the Western Cape. There's they're doing a rollout of training specifically in the schools. And yeah, I'm lucky to be one of the facilitators that go through and making change to 700 schools in 2021. So it's
that is exciting. Are you going to sleep next year?
well,
Is all of this going to be pre-recorded, or is it actually going to be live that you're going to be training those teachers?
no, it's live. It's live. It's you sort of fly down to Cape Town, go and do your training, and you work through that with a set of processes that we're taking them through.
Right.
And obviously we'll know more about and be able to share more about it, but that's also one of the things that's really showing up in the near future, which is really exciting. Oh, and then lastly, the lunchtime coaching, because I've set it up in a way that the lunchtime series is broken into 5 different categories. 5 different categories. The one that I'm currently working on is a book for the new year. So lunchtime coaching will have an actual book on all the lessons learned throughout the last 12 months. And yeah, we're already on chapter 4, which is unbelievably exciting, because writing a book it's really hard, and this takes a lot of discipline.
So what, hold on, Kev, let's just pause you, because I think that's an important comment. You know, a lot of people go, I want to be an author, and I want to be a speaker, and I want to be an MC, and I want to be a coach. But the context of hard is relative, right? Because the hard is the sacrifice of your personal time. The hard is the sacrifice of family time. The hard is the sacrifice of your weekend or your evening. What does hard actually look like?
Yeah, it's a culmination of that. Not only do you have to offer up time, offer up money, offer up be willing to share knowledge. There's also a whole bunch of research that has to go into it. There's a whole bunch of I need to know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Well, at least this is the process I follow. You know, I don't want to put something out there that just goes, what the hell is this? Like, yeah. So I really want to. Yeah, it's like, what's the point? But the flip side of that is, when you go through this process as a marketing tool, as a secondary income, as things that you could use when you're out and about and sharing information with people, it really lends itself to having a hard copied book that you go, well, this is my book. This is one of the books of the Lunchtime series, and I'd love to share this with you. So like, there's, as much as it's a difficult process, making sure that, and I think it ties into your discipline. So are you disciplined enough to get up and do it? Disciplined enough to make it happen? Disciplined enough to budget for it? Disciplined enough to do the research? Like, so, but I think when you, again, it comes back to, your highest values. When your highest values support what it is you're doing, you kind of go, yeah, this is just part of who I am and what I do. I look at the Brent Lindeke interview that we did, and one of the things I loved that he said was, well, how much do you guys work? And he's like, well, I work every day of the year. I work all the time. Like even Christmas Day.
5:30 in the morning, 6:30 until 10 o'clock at night.
And it speaks to the values that he holds for what his life is, right? And because he approaches life that way, he has the life that he lives, right? And he does the things and has the impact that he has. So it's like the
Margaret Hirsch.
Margaret Hirsch, like, she doesn't, she's 75 or whatever.
She turns, she actually, if I remember correctly, her birthday was either this month but I think it's next month, because I remember thinking, oh, she's a November baby like me. So that's just the intrinsic in my head. So
Yeah, and she's finishing her MBA. It's kind of going, okay, so what the hell's your excuse? And like, get off your ass and do it, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think the hard around writing, especially writing or having a book, comes from, there's a whole bunch of things that you really have to pay to, and the commitment to doing it. You really have to
Yeah.
want to do it.
I love that. You really must want to. I love that. Because that's, I think, a lot of, I had this conversation, and this goes to relationships, that goes to business. And I said to someone recently, the problem I think a lot of people have is they fall in love with the idea. It's like some people I know, their biggest goal in life is they want to get married.
Yeah.
And I'm like, tell me more. And when I realize what it is that they in love with the facade of marriage, they love with the wedding, they love with the reception, and they love with the party.
Yeah.
Not like their spouse, the party, the actual event, but they're not always geared up or want to endure that we had an argument, we are married, you're not walking out the door just because I said your food doesn't taste great tonight. Oh, sorry. Yes. Having a little technical wobble there. And that's the thing, like the same with writing a book. You must really want it, and not just want the idea to go, hi, I'm an author, I wrote 5 pages, that's my book. You must like actually want a book that people are going to go, man, that's incredible. So that's really, really awesome.
One of the things that I often get asked is about coaching. It's like, oh, can you give me advice about coaching, and how do you do what you do, and is it something that I should do? It's something I really want to do. And then, the first question is like, show me your portfolio of evidence. Show me that. Show me your portfolio.
What research have you done?
What research have you done? How many people have you coached? How much have you done about it? And then when you say that, they kind of go, oh, and that's really what it is. It's like, if you really want to do it, you'll have some kind of supporting evidence to show that you will. And if you don't, well, start there.
Yes,
start at your portfolio of evidence.
You will. Yeah. I love that. Given in the sake of time, I just want to kind of wrap up some great key finds and I love that. So one of the things that I've taken away from today is business. One of the biggest factors here is being resilient. The program that you run, how you applied it to your life, how going through with your dad passing away and how tough that was. And I recorded this at 12:09, so kind of 9 minutes into the show. One of the things you said was, what is bigger than this moment? And I think that's kind of going to be a phrase that I'm going to write in my office and go, what is bigger than this moment? So when I'm grumpy, I'm irritable, I go, what's bigger than this moment? But also not minimizing, celebrating a goal and success. I'm going to be like, but what's bigger than this moment? Because that actually is, for me, is going to be a guiding factor. So I'm going to blame that on you, and I'm going to quote it and say, my friend Kevin once said, and like in 30 years' time, we could be like at that party. Kevin, remember that 30 years back? No, I'm going to use that. I love that you spoke to the one thing that's been a recurring theme in this interview is values. And I think a lot of people, and it sounds harsh, don't know their personal value worth, but also don't have a value system. They don't know. So you're like, a friend of mine, Lisa, once said, she goes, but her biggest and her highest value is health. So everything around her life is about health, and that stems from her mom passing at a young age, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I love the fact how you spoke about values, because what I took away from that was the values talk to your actions. The values talk to your non-actions, which is also really important. Your values spoke to your actual behavior within those actions, and the values spoke to the mindset that you develop around the actions that you do or don't do. And so that's really awesome. I love that. Remember, guys, in 9 minutes, he said, what is bigger than this moment? So crazy awesome.
Just to reiterate something, the quickest way to test someone's values is to ask them, well, how does this value behave for you? Because if they can tell you, well, I do this and I do this, and every day I go there, and this is the thing I do, and I research this, and this is something, I have a blog page about it, and like, cool, it's like, yeah, you value it. It's a value. There's actual behavior attaching to this value.
Action.
There's some
Yes.
kind of evidence. When people go, oh, I value integrity. And I go, okay, cool. If you value
Tell me
integrity,
more.
tell me how it behaves.
Yes.
And then you see their brains going,
what? How do I answer this now? I've got to create an answer. Yes,
and that's
'cause
why,
it
like
does-
you say,
yes.
people don't know their own values. People don't know their values, why they get up in the days. They don't know why this is supportive to their behavior and their
It is
lifestyles.
a true story.
It's a debilitator.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Kev, as we start wrapping up the show, I'm going to tell
Yes.
you what's happening for kind of November, because it's
Yes,
very, very
please.
exciting.
And thank you. I loved this. It was a good conversation.
Cool, fantastic. Kev, one of the things that's happening in November, and everyone that's listening, is so exciting. So, we spoke about last month and kind of August evolved in a little bit of October. And it was, this month was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Women's Month was all about August. And so, it is due that we just give the men some not airtime, but just a bit of love. Yes, exactly. So kind of what's happening next month is actually really, really exciting. And one of the first people we have on, and I've weighed up a lot of this, done a lot of research into it. We have a financial advisor who's going to be talking about how cancer kind of has affected his own family, the impact of that, how it got into his career, but also talking from a practical point, because this is the goal. I want, when we were just kind of chatting, I remember saying, but I really want it to be about the success stories of, because, you have cancer, but life still has to go on unless you've, really been covered with kind of like 5 million dreaded disease policy payout. For most people, it's like, well, I kind of still have to make work happen. So he's going to just give us a bit of advice around that and how to navigate business. Then the following week, we've got someone, his name's Carl, and he's been in the media, and he's really going to be talking about his journey, wait for it, about breast cancer. So it's really coming, and
I think I know Coral who you're referring to.
Yes, you do. Yes. You do. And he's going to be chatting about that journey and just what that looked like, and how do you navigate work and life, and how do you still, generate an income and all of that sort of thing. And then the following week, we're actually going to talk to a guy, and his business is called Love Your Nuts, and he had testicular cancer. And what he's created, and his name is Torsten. Why are you laughing?
Love Your Nuts. Love Your Nuts or Love You Nuts?
No, Love Your Nuts, and it's that's the name. I know you're going to go research. It's totally cool. And he's actually going to talk about his journey. And I met him probably about 10, 15 years ago. And, he's talking about how that journey has evolved into an NGO that he really creates awareness. Wow. So that, it's taking more than a trauma. It was one of those life-changing experiences, and he'll get into it on the show. And, that might be a more adult-based show than it is for kids, but we'll work out the disclaimer later. And then we are ending with it's 99% in the bag. So I don't want to mention it. We just need to clear it up with his PR, and that's very important. His PR is Edith Venter, and so we just want to make sure that we're doing things correctly. He does have a great name, both in the industry, in many relevance, and the LGBT community. So I just want to be honoring of that. So I'm not going to mention any names, but it's 99% in the bag. I'm just waiting for it. Yes, we can go ahead. So it's a really exciting show, because it's really focusing on real life stuff, dealing with cancer, and how do you take, to quote a phrase by Kevin Britz, what is bigger than this moment? So November is going to be Movember with excitement, and I'm really, really, really excited about what can come from that. And then obviously we'll get into December and celebrate it a bit later. So
I think that's amazing. I think that's such a necessary conversation to have. And I think very often, I know specifically for men do not want to speak about testicular cancer. Men do not want to talk about breast cancer. They kind of avoid and think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. These things happen. These things are essential. And to know that people are thriving and they have businesses out there and they're still getting
Yes.
up, going and doing stuff. It's important to know. Absolutely.
Great. Kevin Brits, thank you very much for being the person that I could interview on our show. It's so cool. I always think, you know, I was thinking back to some of the other national radio stations, and I was like, I remember when they interviewed each other and how people commented and were like, this is amazing. Like, thanks for sharing the stuff we always wanted to know but didn't know, and now we do. So Kevin Brits, thank you very much. Business by Design. As we end, Kevin, just tell us again how we can get hold of you. Where are you? How do we find you? And so if people want to either be trained or be coached by you, they know there's an easy find.
Yeah, so I think the easiest would be businessbydesign.co.za, leadershipbydesign.co.za, and lunchtimecoaching.co.za. So either one of those three. If you can't, and I'm sure you will, but if you can't, just type in my name in Google and my face comes up everywhere. So you'll find me.
You'll be like, I got it.
I'd love to, I'd love to chat to people. I'd love to have because I usually have discovery sessions and see how I can help and if that's a right fit for everyone. So would love to do that and would love to chat more to everyone.
Great.
Yeah.
Kevin Brits.
Lastly, where do we get hold of you?
So very easily, you can just type in at Bjorn Salsone, BJORN SALSONE, and you'll find me. You will. Let's just kind of put it in as you just said, my picture will appear everywhere, and probably something I've just said on LinkedIn or on Twitter is going to pop up immediately, and then, well, the rest kind of just happens. So great. Fantastic.
Awesomeness. Thank you for today, and thanks for the chat. That was lovely.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kev. Have a good day. Cheers, everyone. Ciao.
Bye.